How can you retire early? This video is about the early retirement playbook. What are all the tips and strategies you need to know so you can retire early? As a reminder, I'm Ari Talbleib, a financial planner here to help you retire early. There are 4 things I'm going to walk through in today's video. Number 1 is, what do you want to retire to? Meaning, do you have a purpose? Do you have goals? You might be saying, Ari, I just want to be financially free. I don't want to think about money. But the first thing I want to start with is, how much is it going to cost in retirement? You might not know that today. If that's just you, perfectly fine. We have a framework to work through. If that is you and you're saying, you know what, Ari, I know I want $100,000 per year, great. This video is for you. Number 2 is, when do you want to retire? So if we want to know how much we want to spend, but when do you want to retire? Is it age 40? Is it age 50? Is it as soon as possible? Great. Let's work through what we need to do to make it happen. Number 3, how much portfolio growth do you need in retirement? Because if you're invested the right way, you might be able to spend more, do more, really maximize what you've worked so hard for. And number 4 is, what are your assets? What are the types of accounts that you're going into retirement with? And how can you best set yourself up for that retirement? Let's hop into number 1, which is, how much do you want to spend in retirement? Well, if you want to spend $100,000 per year as a starting place, adjusted for inflation, after taxes, that's wonderful. I love that. It's a very healthy starting spot. I would say it's probably on the higher end, but there's not just on average of people I talk with, but most people really want to know what is the perfect number for them. And there's not an exact calculation, because there's something known as the retirement smile, which you might have heard of in other videos, which is, in the early years of retirement, while you have your travel or energy and health, you tend to spend more. Then it tends to really tinker off, and then it shoots back up at the end of retirement when you want to give more, maybe you want to spend more money, maybe health expenses have come up. And so that retirement smile, it's not a perfect way to calculate exactly what retirement's going to be, but we need a starting place to work off of. And then that's why people work with a planner, to understand how much can you spend to make sure you are living that ideal life. So let's get back to the topic here. What do you want to spend in retirement? Well, there are things that you might be spending on today that won't be there. Maybe there's not a mortgage. Maybe you're not doing any more 401k contributions or Roth IRA contributions. Well, we want to back all of that out, because what we want to understand is, what is the core living expenses in retirement? But then we want to add in expenses that aren't there today. Maybe you're traveling more. Maybe you're giving more. Maybe there's part-time income in retirement. And maybe you're working a little bit more, not for financial reasons, but if there's $10,000, $20,000 per year you're making, wonderful. That can make a huge difference in retirement, which you might not think so because it's a small number. But what it does is it increases longevity, and that compounds on itself as well. So if you're investing that extra $20,000, that could lead to $70,000, $80,000 down the line if you're invested the right way. Now, what we want to specifically focus on with how much do you want to spend in retirement is this. There's not a perfect number. So don't stress about that today. But the helpful thing to work through is, when you're crafting that number, when you're thinking about what makes most sense for you, you can write every single thing out. But what I can promise is I do this with plenty of clients, is that certain things are going to come up. So can you add in some buffer? Maybe it's $80,000 a year. You're saying, you know what, that's what I think we want to add, but let's add on another $10,000 per year, or let's add another $20,000 per year, just to feel really, really good about it. And then right before you retire, you speak with someone like myself, or really any planner, to understand if that's really the right number for you, and if that's what you want to plan on. So don't feel you need to have that exact number, but just start thinking through, what can you do today to best set yourself up for that? And that number, what we do as planners is we adjust that for inflation. Assume you're $100,000 per year, and let's assume you are 60 today. Well, let's assume, sorry to kill you off here, at age 90, we kill you off, well, that's 30 years. Well, let's assume that inflation is 3% per year, $100,000 per year today at age 60, well, it's going to cost you $240,000 per year at age 90 to maintain the same standard of living of $100,000 per year today. So that's what we're up against. Number 2, when do you want to retire? It might be age 40, it might be age 50, it might be today, it might be age 60 or 65. Wonderful. But as life expectancy is going up, Number one, think through, has there been a family life expectancy you want to plan for? And it's a very dark conversation at times, but that's important because if you know that there's a family history of people passing earlier than the average, and call it age 80 or age 75, well, can we spend more and do more while we're here? Can we enjoy that money more? On the opposite spectrum, let's assume that you don't need the money until age 90, 95, 100, 105. You want to plan for something like that, then great. But we want to make sure our money lasts that long so we never outlive that money. So that's what we're thinking through when we're understanding how can we plan for retirement. And specifically regarding when you want to retire, financial freedom, that's just when you don't worry about money anymore. So I urge people to educate themselves, work with someone so they're financially free much, much earlier than when they retire. But if you want to retire at age 40 and you're not planning to pass away till age 100, that's 60 years of expenses we need to be invested so that we can outpace inflation and end up with the equivalent of what your dream living expenses are, so how much you want to spend. Well, that's the value of investing well, is outpacing inflation. And it's really the value of showing it is too risky to not invest because we just guarantee to lose out to inflation. And over time, it's a sure way to run out of money. And that's something we all want to avoid. So number 3, how much portfolio growth do you need in retirement? Well, there's something known as the guardrails approach, meaning conservative investing and the conservative withdrawal rate was 4%. I mean, if you had $100,000 per year, that's what you want to be able to spend, and $1 million in your portfolio today, well, 4% of $1 million is $40,000 per year. So that's assuming you can reasonably take out, assuming you're invested in a 60-40 portfolio, 60% stocks, 40% bonds, it's assuming you can take out 4% of the million, $40,000 per year, and reasonably never run out of money. But recent history has shown is you can end up with a whole lot more money, spend more, do more, live more by investing really, really well in a diversified mix of stocks and bonds and spend 5.5%, 5.2 to 5.5% per year with Guyton's guardrails approach, which I talk about more in a separate video. And with that, 5.5% of $1 million, well, now that's $55,000 per year. But this is where it comes to number 4, which is where are those assets? What accounts are they in? Because if they are in an IRA and you have $1 million and you want to take out 5.5%, that's $55,000 per year. And you want $100,000 per year in retirement, well, there's a $45,000 shortfall. Let's just assume that's being made up by a pension or Social Security or things like that. Okay, great. Now there's $45,000 per year. That's what's coming in from our investments. But our question, $55,000 per year, 5.5% of the $1 million. Well, now what we want to make sure we're planning for is that 5.5% or $55,000 per year. Is that in an IRA? Because do we need to pay taxes and end up with $55,000 per year? Because remember, in retirement, we want to know what can we live on after taxes. You don't want to have to get $100,000 per year, pay taxes, and now you're living off of, call it $80,000 per year. To avoid that, you invest in the right accounts. That's why a Roth IRA is so helpful. That's why sheltering money into after-tax accounts or implementing things like Roth conversions, which I talk about in other videos, can be so helpful. So that's it for today's video. Those are the 4 things. Remember, number 1 is how much do you want to spend in retirement? Number 2, when do you want to retire? Number 3 is how much portfolio growth do you need in retirement? And then number 4 is where are your assets? What type of accounts are they in to make sure that you're adjusting for inflation, paying taxes so that you can maintain your dream standard of living. That's it for today's video. Please share this video with someone if it has been helpful. And as always, subscribe, like this video, and comment if there's a particular topic you want me to talk about in a new video. Thank you.